Our day is not over just yet.
Woohoo! USA! USA!
We have an action-packed hour for you 6 p.m. drivers.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
Matt Skraby wraps up a full day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for May 9th, 2024. Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to join in the party, you can. You can just go to YouTube and type in, search 97.3 The Fan, and you'll see the live broadcast there. You'll see the Skraby Show going, and you can chat with everybody who comes onto the YouTube chat. We got a lot of great people on the chat, so if you're looking for something to do right now, hop on YouTube, search 97.3 The Fan, and chat with all these other Padres fans. I hope everybody, once again, enjoyed the roundtable. I like the roundtable replay for a few reasons. Number one, it gives me an hour to get ready for this show. Number two, I get to listen to it while I get ready for the show, so it gives me lots of ideas. And the roundtable brought up a lot of great topics today. I cannot believe that they did not really get into the 20-20 argument that Chris was making, their record, not, them not winning enough games. But we're going to move past that. We've already talked about that today. And we're just going to have fun heading into this series against the Dodgers. Now, I have to think that the Dodgers are going to come in here and they're going to be ready to play. And the one reason for that is because the Padres won that first series. Well, I guess they didn't win the first series because the first series was actually in Korea. But they won the first real regular season series by taking it in L.A., making a comeback in that game on Friday night with Michael King, who gave up, I believe he got 4 home runs hit off of him. And then they ended up coming back. They ended up winning the game in extra innings. So everything was really good there. But if you don't remember, Will Smith, the Dodgers catcher, said something about Jurickson Profar that sparked Jurickson Profar because, as you know, Jurickson Profar, got brushed off the plate and he got a little bit angry. Him and Will Smith had some words, and then they interviewed Will Smith after the game, and the catcher said that he's not really that relevant, so it doesn't really matter. And then Jurickson Profar the next night hits a double off the top of the wall on Sunday Night Baseball to help the Padres beat the Dodgers and take the series. So I have to think there's a lot of built up, not animosity, but they're going to get up for this series. And not just because it's the Dodgers, but because this series does have implications on the playoffs, has implications on the division. I know some people are already writing off the Padres, as a division winner, and I know it's going to be tough. I'm not saying that they're going to win the division. I'm not saying even that they have a chance to win the division at this moment, but things can happen. And Dodgers haven't played the greatest baseball this year. Currently, they are playing some great baseball, so that's not fun, but I'm really looking forward to this game tomorrow night, and it's going to be a pretty good pitching matchup. Hoping Michael King can bring the good Michael King, and Tyler Glasnow is going to be the Dodgers pitcher. Now, Tyler Glasnow has been incredible this year, so that is something that the Padres are going to have to face. He's 6-1, 2.7 ERA. He's got a WHIP .92 in 50 innings pitched. He's also struck out 63 batters this year and only walked 13. So he's been really good, but I'm trying to go back to his game log because he did pitch against the Padres early in the year in Korea, and he ended up going 5 innings. He gave up 2 runs. So even then, he did walk 4 in that game, but that game was very early in the season. So I don't know how much we can read into that, but I really hope and I really think we're going to get the better Michael King tomorrow. For whatever reason, Michael King cannot find a consistent, start-to-start flow, because it seems like he's coming out of things. Seems like he's going to be going on the up, and then he has a game like he did against the Phillies. And Michael King can't afford tomorrow night, and he doesn't need me telling him this, but he cannot afford to go down early in this game, because that's what we've been doing with the number 5 pitcher. And I know that they talked about the number 5 pitcher a ton on the roundtable, and the number 5 pitcher is allowing the other team to get ahead real early, and then it's catch up from there. And we've talked about that on this show. Catching up day in and day out is not a good thing, a sustainable thing for a baseball team. It takes a lot of energy to come back all the time. It takes all of that. And I think that the Padres are going to try to get on the board early tomorrow, as they always do. But maybe be more aggressive. Try to force Tyler Glasnow out of the game early. I know that everybody tries to force him out of the game early, but he's a tough pitcher. So it's one of those things where we always say, why do the Padres face every tough pitcher? It's kind of true. Every time pitchers come to town, they always face the ace or the second guy. I mean, the Phillies had a perfect storm. They didn't even see Zach Wheeler. But things have been good with the Padres and their offense this year to an extent, as we talked about last night. But I think this is a huge series for the Padres. All right, let's go to the chat real quick, and let's see who's all there. Castro's here. Jeremy's here. Mailman Rob is here. And let's see. Brandon is here. Katrina is here. Evan's here. Annabelle's here. Maria's here. Brutus Fan's here. Jacob is here. Friar Phil is here. Prolific is here. Prolific said it's a must-win game tomorrow. Must win. I don't know if I'm willing to go must win, but I'm feeling the weight of this game tomorrow night. I am. Can't go under 500 again. Got to start building that slow rise over 500, and it has to start tomorrow. It does. Again, I have been following the advice of Tony and Chris forever, saying, it's too early to tell. But whenever you're playing the Dodgers, you're playing your division leader. You have to think that it's a much bigger series than some of the other ones. Some of the ones against the Reds. I mean, the ones against the Cubs was really good because now they hold the tiebreaker, and so on and so forth. Today, since we have no Padres game to talk about, we are going to check on what's going around sports.
It's time to get caught up on the latest with the news of the day.
Gonzo is here. Sad Friar. Oh, Sad Friar. I always say Sad Friar. Aw. Brandon said Superstars got a superstar this weekend for the Padres, not so much the Dodgers. Yes. I mean, superstars are already superstar for the Dodgers, but yes. The Manny, Fernando, Xander Bogaerts combo has to step up. Has to step up this weekend. This is the time where you can make your money. This is the time where you can make fans, turn the corner on you. But if Xander Bogaerts has a great weekend, then I think that is enough to make people be a little bit more quiet about his contract. Because, yes, his contract's bad. But I don't think it's worth all the hate he is getting. So let's hope for Xander Bogaerts to have a good weekend. Let's hope for Manny Machado to have a good weekend. And let's hope for Fernando Tatis Jr. to have a good weekend. All right, news of the day. We didn't get a chance to talk about this on Gwen and Chris, but I really am kind of surprised about the punishment for Patrick Beverley and for what he did last week when he had an inappropriate interaction with an ESPN producer, and the interaction was she wanted to get a quote from him, and he asked her if she subscribed to his podcast. She said no, and he said, you can't ask me then. And then he ended up asking her to leave because she didn't subscribe to his podcast. All right, so that's all good and fine. They actually talked. The producer, reporter was fine. She did a really great job of diffusing the situation, and I credit her for that. Now, the one thing that I do not get is the basketballs being thrown at the fan's head. I don't know what was said, but according to Patrick Beverley's podcast, I did not download it. I just found a clip of it. Patrick Beverley said that they said something to him that he's never heard before, and it was one of the worst things he's heard. And if that's the case, and it probably is the case, it's just inexcusable for those people, and they need to be banned from the arena. I don't know how you ban someone for life, but if you're going to go and you're going to call players' names, whatever they called him, to the point where he's going to throw a basketball at you, then there's something seriously wrong with you. Anyway, it's not the point. The point is, the NBA has suspended him for 4 games for both incidents, total. 4 games. So he's I mean, they're not in the playoffs anymore, the Bucks, and he's going to start next year with a 4-game suspension. Now, I don't know about you, but when I saw this clip of him throwing a ball at a fan's head, I was extremely surprised that this was actually happening, because I feel like that's way over the line. I feel like that is something that you could possibly be suspended for 10, 15, 20 games. I wanted to see more games, because you should never... I mean, this is a professional athlete throwing a basketball at someone's head. They could be seriously injured. Now, if they said something, not cool. But it doesn't give Patrick Beverley the right to throw a basketball at their head. And from the story I was reading, apparently he threw the ball into the stands. It hit a fan in the head. He asked for that ball back. The ball was thrown back to him, and then he threw it back at the fan, and it hit the fan. So I just don't know how the NBA is only giving 4 game suspension here. I think this is a bigger deal than anybody's making it. Maybe I'm just making it too big of a deal. I mean, the police are involved. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office is going to release what happened after the investigation is completed. But, man, this is a shocking thing for me. He said in his podcast, quote, "I will be better, I have to be better, and I will be better. That should have never happened. Regardless of what was said, that should have never happened. Simple as that." Doesn't matter anymore. I am a guy who is able to give people second chances. And we talked about it last night. I am a guy who's able to look past certain terrible things because you were in a moment of weakness or you were in a moment of emotion. I get that. Patrick Beverley, this is not his first time getting involved with fans. This is not his first time getting involved with the NBA. And 4 games is not enough to me. So I'll have to ask the guys tomorrow about this, because throwing a basketball, I know I keep saying it like that, but throwing a basketball into the stands and hitting a fan in the face, not good at all. All right, next story. We're actually talking a lot of the, I guess we're going to be talking a lot of the NBA right now, but if you didn't hear this, former NBA forward Glenn Big Baby Davis was sentenced by a federal judge Thursday to 40 months in prison plus 3 years supervised release for his conviction in November of last year, an alleged scheme to defraud the league's health care benefits plan. Apparently 22 people were involved, 18 of them former players, including Terrence Williams and Keon Dooling. They've been sentenced in the case for filing false medical claims with the NBA players' health and benefit welfare plan. Big Baby has maintained his innocence since this was handed down in October 2021. He was ordered to pay $80,000 in restitution after being found guilty of multiple fraud charges and conspiring to make false statements. Long story short, Big Baby was the one who got really the harshest penalty of 40 months in prison. Some of the other guys in the lawsuit or in the filing were 18 months in prison. So Big Baby either had a really, really heavy part in this because he's getting the most, but he did say to the judge before they sentenced him, he said, he said, "When I lost basketball, I lost myself. I ask you, Your Honor, to help me get back to who I am." And so this kind of goes back to Patrick Beverley. Did Big Baby do something wrong? Yeah, he did. He tried to defraud the NBA's health and welfare plan. That's illegal. But I do have a certain sense of I feel for Big Baby a little bit. You know, I don't know if he's really telling the truth when he said, "When I lost basketball, I lost myself. I ask you, Your Honor, to help me get back to who I am." I mean, he's going to have to serve some time, which he is, but it just doesn't seem right that he's the one getting the 40 months in prison when some of the other guys are only getting the 18 months or less. And it was a wide-ranging scheme to steal millions of dollars, according to Southern District of New York, United States Attorney's Office. Now, the leader of this whole thing was Terrence Williams. And actually, he was actually already sentenced. And he was sentenced to 10 years. But he was the whole leader of this. Big Baby was just part of the part of the crew. And so that is why I'm saying Big Baby needs a little bit of leniency, because he was part of the crew and he was the one who got the most sentence there. All right, let's see. Let's go to the chat and see what's going on in the chat. The system is rigged. Brett Favre was found around the same time frauding Mississippi out of $700,000 and hasn't been charged. That actually, I agree with Mailman Rob. I mean, Brett Favre did have text messages. There's a lot of proof that Brett Favre did do some funny business with the money, but it doesn't seem like he's going to get in trouble. Patrick and Annie say, doesn't matter what was said, that's assault, and Pat Bub's employer could be held liable. 4 games isn't enough, in my opinion. Let's see here. Oh, thank you. You're the best, Skraby. I can't even say my own name. Songstream said that to me. Appreciate that, Songstream. All right. This is the Skraby Show. I am Matt Skraby. If you would like to watch, you can go to YouTube, search 97.3 The Fan. You can follow me on social media, at Matt Skraby. Yes, M-A-T-T. Yes, I know how to spell my own name. M-A-T-T-S-K-R-A, B as in boy, Y. Now, on the other side, we're going to talk about the Padres are always in on trade rumors. The Padres' name always gets bantied about around the entire league. And there's a player right now that I love, and there's a player right now that's making big news around Major League Baseball that the Padres have sort of been linked to. And I'll tell you that player and what the thought process is behind that when we get back here on 97.3 The Fan.
Never.
if you missed anything during the show with Tony and Chris and myself, you can just go back on the Odyssey app and listen. While you're listening to 97.3 The Fan, you can see what you missed and click to listen on demand, miss the guest feature, or if something crazy that happened from earlier, we've got you covered. Download the free Odyssey app, search 97.3 The Fan, and tap earlier today to get started. Matt Skraby here with you on The Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. Watch us on YouTube, search 97.3 The Fan, Facebook, X 97.3 The Fan, SD. You can go back and why don't you do this? Go back to yesterday's show. Listen to the beginning with Chris, not crying, but Chris going off about the record being 20-20. And then listen to today's beginning of the show and tell me that's not completely like two separate people. He toned it down a little bit today. Maybe he had some time to sleep on it, but he toned it down. And Tony did not get the same exact experience that I got yesterday. So go back and look at that. All right. Now, we have some cool stuff that the Padres are going to be giving away here in the next homestand. And tickets are still available for this Dodgers series. If you just go to Padres.com/tickets, you could spend your Mother's Day weekend at Petco Park. I'm not saying this or anything, but just reading that right now may have reminded me of what day Sunday is. Just saying. Just put that together. So you can go down this weekend if you can find some tickets, which they are still available, and you can go watch a game with Mom. Now, when the Colorado Rockies come to town on Tuesday, May 14th, the first 40,000 fans in attendance are going to receive a Joe Musgrove bobblehead with his dog Theo, presented by Petco. This is the second of 5 bobbleheads this year. And so I got the bobblehead over here. I think you've already seen it a million times because it's on TV a lot. But at the same time, I haven't actually seen the bobblehead, and I think it's really cool. Joe's wearing his jersey. He's got his bucket hat. He's got his coffee, and his head is bobbling. Also, his dog Theo bobbles as well. So that is very cool. I actually really want one of these because I'm a fan of Theo. And I'm a fan of Joe, obviously. But I'm a fan of Theo. I was looking at some pictures of Theo on this box. And Theo looks like a good boy. He does. I got to meet Theo one of these days. I would be so excited to meet Theo. Maybe I should bring Lucky. Maybe they could be friends. That would be kind of cool. So May 14th, first 40,000 fans will get this bobblehead on a first-come, first-served basis. Please arrive early. Gates open to the public 90 minutes prior to first pitch. Learn more at Padres.com/giveaways. So we got that out of the way. Not that I was in the way. But we have it out of the way now. And I was talking about a pitcher that is rumored to be on the market. And this pitcher actually is making a lot of news right now because of some of the stuff they've been doing. But Mason Miller, the reliever closer for the A's, his year so far has been pretty incredible. If you don't know about Mason Miller, he basically strikes out everyone. And that's what he does as a closer, is he goes in and he just mows down lineups. So I'm going to go to his game logs because his stats on the year, he's got 8 saves, which, by the way, the A's need to win to get a save. So he's got 8 saves, which is maximizing his effort right there. He's got an ERA of 1.10. He's only pitched 16 1/3 innings, but he struck out 33 batters in that time, and his whip is .67. So basically what he is doing is he comes into a game and he locks it down. And what is he throwing? Why is he so good? Because he could throw it around 102, 103 miles an hour, and he's doing it efficiently. But if you look at, like, when people started taking notice was when he pitched against the Yankees. And the Yankees, he was in to close out the 9th. I'm trying to look for the exact game just because I don't want to give you the wrong one. But they don't show any scores on this game log. I always have an excuse ready to go. But they had, okay, so it was the game on April 22nd. And they needed to, the A's were up 2-0. They actually ended up getting a home run in the top of the 9th inning, I'm sorry. So they go up 2-0. Mason Miller has to come in. Mason Miller faces the heart of the lineup. He faces the guys that you don't want to see at the end of the game. You know, the Juan Sotos, the Aaron Judges of the world. And he just mowed right through them. He struck out Anthony Volpe, he struck out Juan Soto, and he struck out Aaron Judge. And that's when people started taking notice about him because he was doing things that, you know, people weren't doing. Like for this Juan Soto at bat right here, he threw a 101-mile-an-hour ball, and then Juan Soto fouled off a 100-mile-an-hour pitch, and then he swung through a 101.8-mile-an-hour pitch, and then he swung through a 103.3-mile-an-hour pitch. I love this guy. I love Mason Miller. He's on my fantasy team. But why I'm bringing him up is because Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic is reporting that the A's are currently fielding offers for Mason Miller. And some people think that Mason Miller should stay an A, an Athletic, because the A's don't really have anything else to be excited about. Some think that they need to trade him right now just so they could start this whole rebuild process for like the sixth time. But here's the kicker. Mason Miller is not going to hit free agency until 2029. So 5 seasons from now, he's going to be under control, which if you've heard our show, if you've heard Gwen and Chris, you know that contract control is as big of a part of a contract in baseball as anything else. And if you can have him under control until 2029, you are going to get right now you're getting an all-star pitcher for a very low price. The price to acquire him, though, is going to be insane. And this is where my dreams for Mason Miller come to an end, because Ken Rosenthal says that to acquire him, a team would likely need to give up a young player of comparable ability or a substantial package of multiple young players who could be a part of the A's future. Now, I have zero issues. Let me take that back. I have very few issues with trading away prospects. I just don't know if Mason Miller is the guy that you want to give all your high-priced prospects up for. Because, again, he's just kind of bursting onto the scene. We haven't seen how the rest of his season is going. Obviously, things are good right now. But Ken Rosenthal actually gave us an example as well. He reported that the Padres would have to send Jackson Merrill as a part of the package that also included top prospects. He later upgrades the word substantial to staggering as the sort of return the A's would want in order to part with Miller in a trade. I am not trading Jackson Merrill for Mason Miller. Say that 10 times fast. I am not interested in trading someone like Jackson Merrill for a guy that has not done this for years at a time. And the A's are trying to strike while it's hot right now. And the A's should do that. They also have said that they don't want to trade him, but they're listening. So if a team is willing to go out there and pay a very high price for Mason Miller, you're acquiring a guy who seemingly has a high ceiling, and he's going to be under contract control until 2029. Until after the 2029 season. So his first year as a free agent will be 2030 if everything goes according to what it's supposed to go like. But I'm not willing to give up Jackson Merrill. I'm not willing to give up some of the other prospects that we've seen. Like now that there's been a couple deals that the Padres have had to send prospects for, Dylan Cease and for Luis Ariz, the prospect, rankings aren't as strong anymore. And you also got guys like Dylan Lesko and Robbie Snelling that are still within the organization, but you don't want to give those guys up. I personally think the Padres want to build, or they want to grow these guys into homegrown talents. And why would you give up in this case, why would you give up high-priced prospects in order to get a guy that you cannot really know if he's going to do the same thing every game for 5 years? I can't see it happening. Jackson Merrill's too important to this team. And I'm not just saying it because he's playing well and I have a huge man crush on him. No, I am saying it because Jackson Merrill is in this team's plans for the long term. And if they were to trade Jackson Merrill, which they probably would never do, I'm almost 100% sure they wouldn't do it. But who would play center field then? They would have to go through that whole thing. So this is why I don't think this is going to happen. Dwayne says, no moving Merrill. Wolfpack says, extend, cease, and arise. Let's see. Wolfpack also says, just wait it out for Snelling. Let's go. No thanks. We have big game Bob. We keep Merrill. I agree, Patrick and Andy. But what Mason Miller would do, I'm not saying that it would move Robert Suarez off of the closer spot. I didn't even bring that up because it wasn't even a thought in my mind, to be honest. I would think that Mason Miller would be their setup guy. And in the times that they need someone to close the game, he could do it because he has gone 2 innings before. Mason Miller pitched 2 innings today, actually. And he's done that a few times this year already. Robert Suarez is the closer of this team, and he's going to be the closer of this team. But we've seen that 7th, 8th inning get a little wonky here recently, and it does sound good to get a setup guy that can help you get to the 9th inning and do it relatively drama-free. But again, Jackson Merrill's too valuable to this team for them to go after someone like Mason Miller. And let's see where the A's are at the trade deadline. Let's see if the A's are, not getting the offers that they want. It would be way too early to acquire Mason Miller right now. But a lot of people think that he is going to be moved by the trade deadline. And, I mean, if the trade is right for the Padres, I say do it, but I would caution against it as the baseball expert that I am because he's not proven year over year. Kind of like what we're seeing with Ha-Seong Kim right now. We talked about him being traded in the offseason leading into this year. We talked about what's he going to do after this year because his contract is coming up. And we also said, and Tony, I will say, has said he needs to see Ha-Seong Kim be able to put up the same numbers in back-to-back years in order for the Padres to feel good about giving him a lucrative contract extension. Right now, Ha-Seong Kim has struggled to start the year. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to pick it up and he's not going to finish the year strong. But right now, the Ha-Seong Kim, he has not been able to put it together in back-to-back seasons. So we'll see where that goes. Cameron says, I'm pretty sure Mason Miller came up as a starter, so can he convert back? He did come up as a starter, and I know in my fantasy baseball league, he can play in the starter position. And I don't know if he's going to convert back, though, because he pitches. He throws it so hard. But, hey, Jordan Hicks is now a starter, so anything is possible. Anything is possible, as Tony would say. Dwayne says, and Matt, why are you even reading anything a national writer puts out after all the BS shoveled by Rosenthal, Nightingale, and others the past few years? Because they are in the know. Nightingale in the last couple, years has been reporting more and more about bad things on the Padres, so maybe I'm just associating him with bad things. But on the other side, the Ken Rosenthals of the world, I know he duped us on the whole Max Scherzer thing, but Ken Rosenthal does take his job seriously. Ken Rosenthal does not just put out things just to get clicks. He gets clicks no matter what he puts out. So it's not like he needs the attention or anything like that. All right, let's head to break. And when we get back, I got some random stories. Now, today the Giants played the Rockies, and the Rockies were hitting the ball so well. The Giants announcers couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that the Rockies were doing this without cheating. And they didn't really necessarily say that, but I'll break it all down. I'll also tell you about, apparently, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft had a tense meeting before the Tom Brady roast. So we'll get into some of that as well. If you have any Padres topics, let me know in the chat or on Twitter. But we'll be back here shortly on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan.
Quinn and
Skraby back with you here on 97.3 The Fan, The Skraby Show. Thank you to everyone for joining me throughout the day. Appreciate that. We have the Daily Gripe coming up shortly, and then we will be off into the sunset into our Dodger-Padres weekend. Now, I'm going to be the lame guy for a second. I guess it's not lame, actually, but I'm going to be this guy. Let's all behave ourselves this weekend. I think I said it last night. I just don't want to see Petco Park all over social media with a bunch of fights. If someone is bothering you, walk away. That's the best thing to do. Walk away. You do not want to spend time in jail. You do not want to spend time in your wives or husband's jail or kids' jail, whatever it is. You don't want to do that. So everybody, take it easy. Do not get too angry. And just let Dodgers fans say whatever they want. Same with Padres fans. Just both sides just need to at least come together on that front. I don't care if you cheer against each other, but let's just not fight in the stands, please. There are actually kids that go to these games. I actually wanted to take my nieces to some games, but I don't know that I want to take them to games because of what I've seen in the stands. Maybe when they're a little bit older, but I think 8 and 6 right now might be a little too young for some of these games. Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone out of going or anything like that, but just keep it together. Remember, when you're about to fight, think about me saying, walk away. Walk away. Someone on the chat says, you do know how much beer is drank at these games, right? Yeah, I do know that. If Random Ham, drink responsibly, get some hot dogs, and enjoy the fun. Thank you, Random Ham. TRM1, teenage Dodger fans are the meanest, though. Walk away. Walk away. Realize you're a teenager. You don't know what you're doing. So I'm just going to walk the other way. I get it, though. Trust me. I get angry when people come at me. I get angry when people cheer at me. I mean, if you've ever listened to Gwen and Chris, you know exactly what I get angry about, and all of that is what I get angry about. But I do have a level head these days, and I do walk away from situations if they're getting crazy. Annabelle says, if you just ignore them, Dodgers fans will fight each other. That is pretty funny. They will. They'll turn on each other at some point. Just try to get them to argue about something in the Dodger world. You just go and try to get them arguing about, I don't know, some controversial topic from the Dodgers and have them go at it, and then they could fight each other. And then we could put Dodgers fans on social media fighting. So there you go. Also, in a serious note, I wanted to say happy heavenly birthday, as Tony Gwynn Jr. calls it, to Tony Gwynn Sr. I will never forget the first show that we did on his birthday. And this was years ago. We've been doing the show together for over 6 years now. But I didn't know how much Tony Gwynn Sr. had really touched this community and this city. And I knew that he was a beloved guy. But that first show was one of the biggest eye-openers for me as to what Tony Gwynn Sr. meant to this city. And I will never forget this fact, this thing about that show. We took calls for 4 straight hours from people telling their stories of Tony Gwynn Sr. and meeting him and things like that. We never heard the same story twice. Every single story was unique and it was different. And what that tells me is that Tony Gwynn Sr. wanted to take time for people because they were taking time for him. And knowing his son and knowing what his son's all about, it is something that I think is very important, and it's kind of a lost art these days. I'll say it. When I was younger, I saw Reggie Miller in a Chinese food restaurant in Chicago. I think I was 8, 9, or maybe even 10. But I remember I was so pumped up because Reggie Miller was there. And I just wanted to go over and say hi, get a picture, which, it's okay if he says no, but my parents did it right. They asked the waitress to go over and ask if I can come over and take a picture with Reggie Miller, and he said no. So he said, and he looked at me when he said no. Well, he looked over in our direction. I don't think he actually looked at me. But those are the moments that I'll never forget that. And Reggie Miller might be a good guy. I have no idea. But I will never forget that moment of Reggie Miller telling me no. And that is something that no one has a story about when you're talking about Tony Gwynn Sr. No one has that story. He would reach. There's one story that I hear all the time of him. He was ejected from a baseball game when he was coaching at San Diego State, and on his way back to the hotel after getting kicked out of the game, a fan stopped him, and even though he was fired up and he was ready to go, he stopped and he had a nice conversation with the fan. And so happy heavenly birthday to Tony Gwynn Sr. I never got to meet him. That is something I am very sad about, because I would have loved to be able to at least, get to have met him at least once or something like that, just to see what it's all about. I believe everyone. I believe what people say about him. It just is one of those things that I'll never get to have the pleasure and the honor of meeting Tony Gwynn Sr. So really, really, just want to say happy birthday to him. All right, let's get into some of this stuff before we go to the Daily Gripe. And apparently at the Tom Brady roast. Now, the Tom Brady roast, I was reading an article about the Tom Brady roast the other day, and they were saying how brilliant it was of Netflix to do this, and how Netflix is just reimagining the space right now, the streaming space. I don't know that it's that brilliant to bring Tom Brady and a bunch of people together to roast him. I think that's I think that's a given. Maybe talking him into doing a roast would be the hard part, but I don't think it's I don't think Netflix is doing anything crazy here. They're just doing what's already been done on Comedy Central for years and years and years. Anyway, that's a separate rant for a separate day. People are like, Prolific said that's why Reggie Miller never won a ring. That's pretty funny, I gotta say. That is pretty funny. Let's see. Prolific said, my uncle was, we're talking about Tony Gwynn, and then I'll get back into the Bill Belichick thing. My uncle was a painter back in the 90s and got the chance to paint his house and gifted my uncle with a couple signed bats and baseballs. That's awesome. See, those stories right there all the time about Tony Gwynn Sr. All right, my ADD is getting a little crazy. Back to the Netflix roast. So Julian Edelman was telling a podcast about this, and I guess they were backstage, and there was guys like, hey, here's the room. Can you imagine this room? Like, I've been in the Padres clubhouse. I've done some things before. But can you imagine walking into a room who has Bill Belichick, Julian Edelman, Drew Bledsoe, Rob Gronkowski, and Randy Moss? That would be a wild room to walk into. Let me tell you that. So they're standing there. Bill Belichick is like having a good time. And I've actually heard about Bill Belichick that the gruff exterior that you see is not who he is at all. And he's actually a really fun guy, and he likes to joke around. He likes to tell stories and stuff like that. And so here's what Edelman said. Here's what Edelman said about it. He said, Bill's opening up. We're back in the green room. Bill's opening up. He's having fun. He's talking war stories, talking rookie skits, talking fun stuff, doing stuff. We know what Bill's all about, but it was like amplified because he was excited to see everybody because he doesn't have a job anymore. Then Kraft walks in. Belichick's kind of holding court. This is Drew Bledsoe now. As he's in the middle of the story, Kraft walks in, and so everybody in the room goes over and says hi to Robert Kraft. And Julian Edelman said the tension in the room could cut bleeping glass. And Edelman said Kraft came in and was like, and he said in his own head, uh-oh, there's going to be some fireworks. Julian Edelman walked away because he didn't want to deal with this at all. And I think that's hilarious that he just walked away. But I guess at some point, Belichick and Kraft got together for about 10 minutes and were having a conversation about something. Now, the reason I brought this up is because something that was said, we talked about it on the show the other day about how Giselle and Aaron Hernandez's ex-fiance were upset about some of the jokes that were said about them. And this is what I find is weird. Tom Brady will go to the end of the earth to protect Robert Kraft, but everybody else in his life is fair game. Even the mother of his children, Giselle Bundchen. I find that very strange, that Robert Kraft holds a higher spot in Tom Brady's life than the mother of his children. I think that's strange. I don't know why Robert Kraft, I do know why, because he's got a lot of money and he holds a lot of power in the NFL. But I don't know why anyone would really care about Robert Kraft walking into a room. It's just, I can tell you right now, if Robert Kraft walked into a room that I was in, I don't think I would be that impressed, because Robert Kraft is probably some, I don't know, 5'8" old man. I don't know. I don't know if he's 5'8" or anything like that, but I just can't believe that Tom Brady is taking Robert Kraft's side over Giselle. Even if Giselle and Tom don't like each other anymore, I think it's still kind of crazy that you took an owner and what he, his feelings into account before you took your ex-wife's feelings into account. Maybe that's a weird sentence to say. Anyway, I'll move on. The next story it's about the Raiders, and Terrion Arnold was drafted in the NFL draft in this recent NFL draft. He was drafted by the Lions at number 24 overall. But according to Terrion Arnold, the Raiders nearly got him much earlier, but instead, the Raiders will go down in history as taking Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia, at number 13 overall. And Arnold says it was because of a coin toss. On the podcast The Next Round, Arnold said, the Lions knew that the Raiders were a possibility, and actually the Raiders coach, they called me after the draft, and they were like, we actually had a coin toss between you and Brock Bowers. It landed on him. And I was like, oh, wow. So this is kind of crazy. So someone, of course, went and asked Antonio Pierce, Raiders head coach, whether or not the coin flip actually happened or the phone call. Antonio Pierce said no call and no coin flip. As soon as the last two quarterbacks went off the board, we said Bowers all the way. Now, I'm not sure who's lying here, but if you're really deciding the future of your team by flipping a coin, then you got some issues, because Brock Bowers is a good player, but I mean, if you're going to be able to take someone like a Terrion Arnold early, why wouldn't you do that? I do not believe they flipped a coin for this. Do not believe it at all. Brock Bowers is a good tight end. I actually really wanted the 49ers to take him. He would never have lasted that long, but Brock Bowers is a pretty good tight end, and we'll see what he could do, but I don't believe this at all, and I find it really weird. One of them is lying. One of them is, because there is truth there somewhere. Whether or not the coin flip happened, whether or not the phone call happened, one of them is lying.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
Annabelle says, this was super weird to be a lie. What part? Is it the coin flip, or tell me what part, Annabelle? All right, my Daily Gripe. It's going to be quick because it's not that big of a deal. But at the self-checkout at grocery stores, again, a grocery store one, the people who leave receipts in the self-checkout machine. I don't get it. Why can't you take your receipt like every other person? So now I have to walk up and your receipt's just hanging there, and I got to go find a trash can now because I want my receipt. Now I have to pull the other receipt off to get my receipt, and then I have to throw the other receipt away. Come on, people. Why can't we just throw the receipts away? That's my Daily Gripe. Not the best thing in the world, but it was a gripe for sure. All right, that's it for the Skraby Show. I will be back with you tomorrow. Talk to you at 2 p.m. Have a good night, everybody. Hey, it's Skraby here, and if you're like me and get annoyed by almost anything and everything, the Daily Gripe is for you. I get my gripes off my chest weekdays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 97.